I've always been a comic book fan.
Okay.
That's what taught me drawing.
Okay.
Collecting comics as a child. But what I was always missing was the representation of black people in the comics narratives. I mean, we had the big heroes like Black Panther, Blade all along the way, but these were very few and far between when you look at our demographics in this country. And when graphic novels started hitting hard, I would say in the late 70s, early 80s, one of the first graphic novels that ever came out was an African-American hero called Saber. Okay. And it was a phenomenal book. And I look at all the ways in which we have approached comic books, how we have approached horror, how we have approached pop culture through hip-hop, through our own narratives as African Americans. And I was very interested with John Jennings and how we could bring all those nexuses together. So John Jennings, who was a phenomenal artist and scholar and writer himself, wanted to put together this exhibition called Shook. And the exhibition was essentially about what we fear and what fears us, how we view horror through the lens of comics and hip-hop and the black narrative, and how we would ask artists to respond to that. We would leave it open to them. And that's how this exhibit came along, and I think we were very much happy with the result, because most African American artists have dealt with the idea of horror in their work sometime or another. There are many who through abstraction tried to flee it, but when you look at the representation of the black body in the history of art, especially in the Americas, we have always had to deal with the trauma against the black body. But we also had to deal with the demonizations of our spirituality, the demonizations of our cultural production, and how we had to basically counterpunch that through our art. Sure. So this show is a kind of a representation of all that. It kind of plays off the idea of horror, but it also plays off the idea of the mistaken ideas of horror when it comes to black people in the Americas. A perfect example is this piece I did. It's called Attack of the 50-Foot Fetish. And the idea behind this piece was to take a Nkisi Nkondi object, and anyone who's familiar with the Nkisi Nkondi object understands that is an object of protection and revenge against evil. So when you see a Nkisi object in a museum setting, it is far removed from its function. The function of a Nkisi object is to guard and protect a space, a home against evil and assault. Okay. So these would stand in front of someone's hut or house, as we would call it now. And basically every nail represents a prayer to one's ancestors to activate the Nkisi to protect through its energy your house and home. Wow. Of course, when it gets to Americans, people start calling them voodoo dolls and saying the nails represent evil and representations of evil. That's far from the truth. I put this on the same level as some Christians would put the cross. That's the function of this object. It is an object of ancestral veneration and energy and protection. So we have totally misrepresented this object. So what I wanted to do, since this object represents, number one who protects and one who seeks revenge against evil, I created this idea of it being Trayvon Martin coming back to seek revenge on Babylon and the evil enacted against African Americans. So the Nkisi Nkondi has now grown to a 50-foot fetish, basically attacking white supremacy, attacking evil police, attacking all the white supremacists and all the negativity that has been enacted upon the black body. So he's still functioning as that Nkisi Nkondi, that protective object.